or the National Football League, has been in existence since August 20th of 1920, and it was originally founded as the American Professional Football Association and renamed the National Football League in 1922. Baltimore Colts were the ones that were credited with being the first NFL team to have an official cheerleading squad. By the 1960s and 70s, cheerleading had become a common feature of NFL games. The Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, established in 1972, significantly popularized the concept. And guess what? One of my BFFs when I was in my 20s was an ex-Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. I would say that the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders were probably the most popular out of all of the cheerleaders in the NFL. So I was quite proud of my friend that she was a Cowboys cheerleader right around the time of their winning streak, 3 or 4 rings, I think, back in a row. It was back-to-back winning. I think this was under like Emmitt Smith and those guys. I'm not a big fan of football, but I do watch it and I do appreciate the sport. But this new Netflix series has a lot of people on a high alert, especially women and feminists, thinking that, the cheerleaders were never compensated, or they're not compensated enough, or there's a lot of things around this Netflix series. Now, for the actual games themselves, game day pay, they can get $150 to $500 per game. So, an annual salary, it can range anywhere from like $2,000 to $10,000, depending on that team that they're cheering and doing their stuff for, and the number of game appearances. Now, obviously, I never asked my friend about sick days and compensation for different events outside of this, but when I did look up this stuff, they can earn money for doing promo events. Think of those girls that go and do promotional. A lot of them do like bear stuff too. Benefits and bonuses. Some teams offer them bonuses, benefits, and there's other additional compensation, I won't say. Now, there are several teams that have faced lawsuits from these cheerleaders over low pay and poor working conditions. Many of the lawsuits led to settlements and changes in compensation practices. As time went on, they looked at, okay, we got to change some of these conditions, right? Like the Oakland Raiders. After a lawsuit in 2014, the Raiders agreed to pay their cheerleaders $9 per hour for practices and game day performances. This resulted in an annual earning of around $3,000 to $6,000. That was in 2014. New York Jets, as of recent. The Jets cheerleaders earn about $150 per game and $50 to $75 per public appearance. This is a total of $3,000 to $5,000 annually. Yearly, guys. Yearly. Okay, hear me out. While this is still relatively low compared with other roles within the league, the women are cheering. They're just on the sidelines dancing and cheering. They're not winning championship rings or anything like that. I'm not trying to be mean. One of my good friends was an ex-Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. When I met her back in 1990, I think it was 98, it was interesting because I obviously had a load of questions to ask her, and I wanted to know what it was like being a cheerleader. Most of these women usually have a side gig in acting or modeling or some sort of field where they want to become like a wife of one of these NFL players. They're usually women that are, I don't want to call them the word gold digging, but that's like pretty much the word that comes to mind. And it's not in such a negative way, because a lot of times these women, they know they're beautiful. I mean, my friend, she was extremely small, petite, probably a size 1 or 2. And I remember go meet her at her house, and this was in LA, be like, oh gosh, I forgot this thing or that thing, and I didn't bring a jacket or whatever it was, and we're getting ready to go out and hang out for the night. And she'd say, oh girl, I have you. I could let you use one of my sweaters. And I'm thinking, my arm can't even fit in your sweater. You're like a size 1. Because I was always like nervous that I'd break the buttons. That's how tiny these girls are. Sweet girl. She was from Texas. She's a Texas girl, homegrown Texas girl. And she really wanted to make it as an actress in LA. I mean, she did different little gigs and side gigs and stuff, but one of her biggest aspiration was to become an actress. She always had new headshots being taken, and she was extremely gorgeous. And I kept thinking, why do you do the cheerleading thing? What was that? Why? And she was like, well, it's the exposure, right? It's getting into a group or a circle of people that are rich, simply put. I think for me, when I heard her complain about the pay and, how she had to spend so much money just to look good and to take care of herself. And she said, you don't understand. This is it's like a full-time job. We're expected to be all over the place, traveling, but we don't get any help or assistance. It's almost like they want us to do all this stuff to attract men to come to watch these games, right? Like, obviously men aren't going there just for the cheerleaders. They're going there to watch their team win. But most of them do enjoy seeing the cheerleaders on the side. It's a part of the game itself. The men come and they look at these cheerleaders. And I've seen loads of footage of men that are celebrity men sitting on these sidelines staring clearly at the butts of these cheerleaders. This is where the problem lies. I think a lot of women in general need to realize, and it's why I don't advocate for beauty pageants, because it's like you women want to say, oh, don't sexualize me, but yet you offer yourself up for this sexualization. And that's where me and her, I felt like her personality was that of, I'm going to use my assets, which is my beautiful body, my beautiful, beautiful face, to solicit men. And I just couldn't, I couldn't bring myself to the idea of like hanging around with someone that superficial. I just watched that movie Hitman with my husband the other night, and I was like joking with him saying, the only reason, this guy did this was because the woman was beautiful. He wouldn't have been following her like a damn puppy if she wasn't beautiful. Beauty does get you things. I don't care what anybody tells you in life. Beauty and how you keep up with your looks does matter. But they are putting themselves out there for this reason, to be consumed. And the NFL cheerleaders, even though they're required to wear these specific skimpy designs, the uniforms that they put them in, short skirts, short crop tops, all that stuff that can be considered skimpy, at least to this woman right here. Even during the cold weather, you see them out there in that. Maintaining a consistent look is a part of that job. And this is what I mean about them really pouring into their looks. Some of the teams do provide these cheerleaders with warmer options, like, cold weather jackets. Sometimes you think you're seeing their skin, but they're really wearing it's like a stocking that matches their skin, and it's thick. And it looks really thin, but it's not. These women are really thin. That's the best way I can explain it. When I say they're thin to the point that they count calories, they watch their weight. I remember eating out with my friends several times, and I'm like, are you going to eat that? She really, really had to watch her weight to remain consistent with the other cheerleaders. This video's already been way too long. I just thought I'd just mention this because I know this series is out right now. I will eventually watch it. I just feel like I really don't need to, since I personally hung out with one of these cheerleaders for, I think it was 2 years straight. We had like a really tight friendship. It was right before I got pregnant. And I think maybe even that could have been it. Yeah, that could have been it. I noticed something with a lot of women that are striving to be actresses or in the industry. They don't really push to have kids. They don't want kids, really. And the only time they'll want a kid is if they're married already to one of these NFL players, or they have I guess you could say they have some sort of an agreement that they're going to be kept. They're calculated about what they want to do. They're calculated and they're extreme when it comes to their bodies. And if they're going to decide to have a baby, they're getting tummy tucks and plastic surgery and you name it. Anyways, will you guys be watching the series? And if so, please comment below and tell me what you think. Have a great day. Think for yourself.